9 spine-chilling true stories, the sinister secrets revealed about my haunted neighbor. Jenna's breath caught in her throat as she first laid eyes on her new neighborhood. The picturesque houses lined up like shiny teeth in a perfect smile, their manicured lawns glimmering under a warm Ohio sun. She thought she had escaped her troubled past, grasping at straws of hope. But as night descended, shadows crept through her cozy home, bringing chilling whispers of secrets she wasn't ready to face. The first night felt like a scene out of a horror movie. A sudden cold draft swept through the living room, sending a shiver up her spine. Timmy, her lively 5-year-old, woke with a start, eyes wide in fear. "Mommy, it feels like someone else watching," he whispered, skin prickling. She laughed nervously, trying to brush off the haunting feeling in the air, but her heart raced. She couldn't shake the sensation that she was being observed. Then there were the sounds, muffled thumps and distant murmurs creeping through the walls like slow-burning dread, culminating in the little fingers of her daughter, Lily, clutching a crayon, drawing strange figures at the dining table. "Look, Mommy!" she chirped, pointing at the drawings with uncharacteristic delight. They were dark, twisted shapes that danced in the corners of her mind. "Are they friends?" Jenna's smile faltered. Shadows that resembled local missing children loomed in those innocent lines, staining her hopes with dread. During long shifts at the diner, her mind was heavy with unease. Each friendly wave from neighbors turned obligatory, their eyes sliding away as if hiding truths that were too terrible to share. And then there was Doug, the man next door with the charming smile that never reached his haunted eyes. "Need help settling in?" he offered with a voice like velvet, yet his presence left an unsettling taste. Whenever Jenna asked about the curious stories swirling around the town, his demeanor shifted faster than the autumn leaves slipping, uneasy, as if he carried an unbearable weight. The weeks passed, and with them, the strangeness deepened. Timmy's drawings morphed from playful scrawls to bleak scenes, the shadowy figures now glaring back with a menacing coldness. Toys reappeared in odd places, an eerily familiar doll on the porch, a toy car by the shrub like the past refused to stay buried. Whispers echoed from Doug's home at night, muttering like ancient secrets trapped in time. Each unsettling discovery wrapped around Jenna's throat tighter, suffocating her hope for the quiet life she sought. As petrifying rumors of vanished children swept through the community, Jenna felt urgency rise within her, a fire of instinct ignited. Pleas for help fell on deaf ears. Why wouldn't anyone listen? Why did her neighbors turn away? The solidarity of silence weighed heavy. They were protecting something, a secret buried deep within the foundations of their lives. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with the reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Driven by the weight of dwindling sanity, Jenna cornered Doug, her heart pounding like thunder in her chest. Conversations turned into confrontations, revealing shadows of darker truths, missing families, unearthing buried connections that twisted Doug's smile into something sinister. The icy grip of terror tightened as footsteps echoed outside where her kids were supposed to sleep. A sound of soft thudding, too heavy to be just her imagination. With a racing pulse and a chill creeping down her spine, Jenna hesitated by the door. Faces cloaked in shadow loomed in her mind. The clock on the wall ticked eerily, counting down to something unspeakable. Would she uncover the truths lurking beneath those neighborly smiles before it consumed them all? The shadows outside shifted, moving like dark whispers, edging closer to her home. Jenna's resolve faltered, each heartbeat echoing the urgency in her chest. The issues of childhood innocence were too profound to let slip away. She could not dismiss Timmy's fears any longer. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily's small voice broke through the cloud of fear for Jenna. She turned, her little girl's face illuminated by the glow of the kitchen light, holding her crayon-drawn figures like shields. There was comfort in the child's trust, yet that comfort disappeared when Jenna recalled those hollow eyes staring back at her from the paper. In the murky darkness, she opened the door a crack, peering out into the night. The air felt thick, as though it were holding its breath. The streetlights flickered sporadically, creating a strobe of unsettling light against the landscape of homes. Doug's house loomed ominously across the yard, its shutters creaking in the wind, a soft, rhythmic pulse that seemed to sync with her own rising panic. Jenna's instincts screamed at her to retreat, yet the lingering question of what lay beneath the surface propelled her forward. She stepped outside, the cool air biting at her skin, stealing her courage. Each step felt like a challenge, dragging her toward the depths of darkness as she walked closer to Doug's front door. "Jenna?" came a voice from behind, sharp and familiar. It was Kate, another neighbor, with a look of wide-eyed alarm. "What are you doing out here?" "I'm trying to figure out what is going on. I need to know the truth about this place," Jenna replied, her voice barely steady. "You don't want to?" Kate shook her head vigorously, glancing toward Doug's home, her voice dropping to a whisper. "It's not safe. You should take the kids and leave." "I can't just run away." The urgency slipped into anger, masking her fear. "They're my children. I need to protect them." The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. Kate's eyes darted back to Doug's house, fear etched on her face. "He asks not who you think no one is. Just listen to me." Before she could continue, a shout pierced the night. A child's voice echoed from deep inside the shadows. "Help! Please!" Jenna's heart plummeted as she spun around. It was Timmy. He stood in the doorway, the sound of his frantic voice clawing at her insides. "Mommy, I'm scared." "No!" Panic transformed into action. Jenna dashed toward the house, barely hearing Kate's desperate pleas to stop. She barreled through the front door, every nerve in her body screaming for answers. Inside, the air thickened, heavy with a presence Jenna couldn't identify. The walls seemed to close in on her, their silent screams echoing her worst fears. "Timmy?" she called, her voice trembling. "Mommy!" He sounded so close, like a lifeline, yet distant, swallowed by the eerie silence of the house. She rushed down the hallway, frantic footsteps pounding on the wooden floor, her pulse thrumming in her ears. Then something brushed her arm. Jenna froze, eyes wide. The darkness felt alive, vibrating with unspoken threats. She brushed it away, spinning around, searching for any hint of her son. And then she saw it. A door slightly ajar at the end of the hallway, pulsing with a faint light. She could hear whispers emanating from within, too low to decipher, but the hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. Her breath caught. She could feel the weight of a terrible truth whispering like smoke in her mind. "Timmy!" she yelled, adrenaline flooding her veins as she charged toward the door. Just as she reached it, a shadow darted by the window, quick, flickering, familiar. The moment Jenna swung the door open, her heart stopped. Nothing prepared her for the sight that awaited inside. With dread pooling in her stomach, she took a single step forward and gasped. The room was filled with toys, only they weren't just toys. They were remnants, fragments of lost childhood, strewn across the floor like a graveyard of innocence. And in the center stood Timmy, his eyes wide with a terror she couldn't comprehend, staring into the darkness beyond. Jenna realized then that what lay ahead was far more horrifying than the neighborhood's secrets. She felt reality shift, the world unraveling in an endless curtain of shadow. What had she just uncovered? And was it too late to save her children? As the figures in darkness began to materialize, Jenna knew one truth above all: the nightmare was just beginning. Jenna's lungs tightened, air stealing from her chest as she took in the scene around her. Timmy stood frozen, his gaze fixed on something Jenna couldn't yet see. Shadows danced eagerly outside the doorway, urging her to snap out of her shock. "Timmy!" she cried, desperation lacing her voice. She stepped into the room, heart racing. The toys scattered across the floor seemed to pulse with life: dolls with cracked porcelain faces, action figures frozen mid-battle, teddy bears with one eye missing. It was as if the remains of a long-forgotten childhood had been summoned to bear witness to the horror unfolding. "Mommy, don't!" Timmy screamed, his voice trembling, a raw edge that cut through Jenna's horror. She turned to him, eyes wide, panic igniting within her. "What is it, honey? What do you see?" He didn't respond, merely pointed, his small finger shaking. Following his gaze, Jenna glanced toward the far corner shrouded in darkness. A figure began to take shape, tall and skeletal, draped in shadows, its face obscured like a nightmare half remembered. "What the hell?" Jenna gasped. The figure was barely human, a collage of skin and darkness, like a grotesque painting come to life. It loomed closer, eerily silent save for the slow, deliberate sound of breathing that didn't seem to belong to any living thing. "No!" The raw intensity of her voice filled the room, pushing back against the fluid darkness. "You need to come with me, Timmy! Now!" With a surge of adrenaline, she rushed to grasp her son's hand, but he flinched away. "You can't! It's not safe!" His small body trembled, eyes wide with sheer fear. "What do you mean? What happens if we stay?" Jenna shouted, her heart breaking at the sight of her son's terror. But as he opened his mouth, a chilling laugh erupted from the shadowy figure. It echoed around the room, reverberating like nails scraping against glass, sinking deep into Jenna's consciousness. It was a sound filled with malicious joy, a dark celebration of their fear. In stunned silence, Jenna watched as the figure stepped forward, revealing a visage that sent chills straight into her bones. Its hollow eyes glowed like dying embers, and a smile creaked across its ragged lips, eerily stretched impossibly wide. "Mommy!" Timmy whimpered, scrambling backwards as if the darkness itself were reaching out toward him. Jenna lunged, gripping him tightly and spinning around, desperate to reach the door. "We have to go! Now!" But just as they turned, the door slammed shut, the sound monstrous and final, trapping them in with the creature. "Welcome!" it hissed, voice dripping with grotesque delight. "Your journey has just begun." Jenna's heart raced, pounding like a drum in her ears. The toys around them began to shudder, rattling as if acutely aware of the new presence. They strayed closer, tiny figures now teetering on the edge of life, their eyes pinched with malice. "There's no way out," the creature whispered, and Jenna felt the walls closing in, the weight of its truth suffocating her. "By dawn, you will understand," it said, the shadows swirling around it, coiling like serpents, pulling her deeper into their nightmare. "Timmy! Hold on tight!" Jenna shouted, thrusting all her strength towards the door. As she pushed, a piercing scream erupted from the depths of the dark figure's throat. Suddenly, the light flickered, and Jenna was thrust back against the wall, a force so strong it knocked the breath from her lungs. Timmy fell, his little hands scrambling to find purchase on the floor strewn with remnants of lost children. Jenna screamed as she reached for him, but the shadows twisted, swirling until everything faded into a cacophony of terrifying whispers. The last thing she heard was Timmy's terrified cries drowning in the abyss of darkness. As silence returned, the room lay still, toys lying innocently still, but shadows lingered at the edges, sharpening their claws. What had they awakened? What horrors awaited them at dawn? Jenna fought to regain her senses, the darkness swirling like a thick fog around her. The room was disorienting, the familiar transforming into something else, something terrifying. She blinked, straining her eyes against the shadows that now seemed to close in, suffocating her in their cold embrace. "Timmy!" she called, her voice a shaky whisper, barely cutting through the stillness. Her heart thudded violently, every beat a war drum echoing the dread creeping into her veins. The moment hung like suspended animation, she felt time splinter. Her hands trembled as she reached out into the void, searching for any trace of him. The echoes of his cries reverberated within her mind, a haunting loop. Panic ignited anew in her chest. "Timmy!" Somewhere in the darkness, a soft whimper replied. She turned towards the sound, her instincts driving her forward, though every step felt like moving through molasses. "Mommy, I'm scared." She finally spotted him on the floor, trembling and huddled against the wall like a broken doll. Jenna lunged, the fear propelling her across the room, but as she reached for him, a violent shudder rippled through the air. The toys lurched, the once still figures animated by the surrounding malevolence. "Get away from him!" she screamed at the gathering shadows. For a moment, silence fell again, thick and suffocating. The world held its breath. Then, the dark figure stirred, its hollow eyes shimmering, pinpricks of light that pierced the blackness. "Why do you fight?" it murmured, each word a whisper that clawed at her mind. "He belongs to me." Jenna felt the ground underneath her feet shift, a tremor that destabilized her resolve. She wanted to scream, to tear the darkness apart with raw emotion, but it twisted and snickered, savoring her fear. "Mommy! Don't let it take me!" Timmy's voice cracked like glass, and the sound snapped Jenna back into action. She lunged toward him again, grasping his small hands in hers, their warmth a fleeting flicker of hope amid the encroaching chill. "Hold on!" she shouted, spinning and pushing against the pressure of the shadows that seemed intent on pulling them apart. But the moment she turned, the room twisted dramatically, the walls swirling in a dizzying blur. The door was gone, replaced by a solid mass of darkness, and behind her, the creature shifted closer, the smell of decay hanging in the air. "Your fear feeds me," it hissed with sadistic glee, its voice now a haunting melody. "I will show you what lurks beyond the light. I will enlighten you by dawn." "Stop it!" Jenna snapped, desperation fueling her fury. "You want to take my son?" As she pushed harder, a light flickered in the distance, a beacon narrowing through the oppressive gloom. She dared not pause to contemplate its origin but summoned every ounce of strength and courage within. "Timmy, we're going to make it," she promised, her voice steady, though her insides trembled with doubt. They darted toward the light, pushing through the tight grip of shadows. But as they neared, the light flickered erratically. It twisted, revealing not the door they so desperately sought, but a window, an unending view of darkness beyond a facade of hope. The faint glow reflected thousands of eyes of other children, watching, waiting in twisted curiosity. "What are they?" Timmy whispered, awestruck with terror, clinging to Jenna's arm. Just hold on tight," she ordered urgently. Her resolve wavered in the face of the unknown behind the veil of shimmering light. The creature laughed again, a sound that chilled her blood. "Do you know the price of freedom? It isn't as simple as you think." Suddenly, the ground beneath them cracked, and they began to fall. As the darkness below beckoned and screams echoed around them, Jenna realized it was a choice between stepping into the unknown and facing the horrors that awaited at dawn. In that moment, she knew she had to decide. What lay beneath this facade of fear? Would she find a way through, or would they be ensnared in a nightmare from which there was no escape? The darkness swallowed them whole, and Jenna felt weightlessness kick in the sensation of falling, spinning, plunging into an abyss with no known depth. Timmy's small hand squeezed hers, a lifeline fraying in the face of encroaching despair. "Mommy!" he cried, his voice echoing against the cavernous void. I can't see! Stay with me! Don't let go!" she shouted, the words clawing through her throat as they tumbled further into the blackness. She could feel the shadows, cold and clawing, grasping at their limbs as if trying to siphon away their very essence. Moments felt like hours. Just as dread threatened to drown her, a sudden rush of air whipped past them like a violent gale, shoving them violently in different directions. Timmy's grip slipped, panic igniting in Jenna's chest. "Timmy!" Her heart raced as she twisted in midair, reaching into the thick void, grasping at shadows. "Mommy!" His voice was growing fainter, and she didn't care about the suffocating blackness around her. She thrust her arm out again, desperation propelling her forward. The air around her shifted, walls materialized out of the gloom, jagged edges slicing through her panic. A dim flicker illuminated a room ahead, a warped imitation of their living room, where shadows danced mockingly, twisting the familiar into grotesque shapes. And there, on a strange sofa covered with wisps of smoke and tendrils of gloom, sat an unfathomable figure, a twisted reflection of someone she might know. The features were distorted, a mockery of familiarity, lips curling into a sinister grin, exposing jagged teeth. "I see you've chosen to embrace the darkness," it purred, the voice resonating with horrid nostalgia. "Timmy is lost to the maelstrom now, dear Jenna. What kind of mother are you, to let him slip through your fingers? Shut up! She screamed, charging toward the figure. But it only laughed, a sound that echoed in a bone-chilling rhythm. With a snap of its fingers, the room abruptly changed. The warped corners stretched as if they breathed, and Timmy appeared at the far end, his eyes wide and shattered. Jenna lunged for him, but the distance warped, pulling him further away. "Mommy, help!" he cried, trapped behind an impenetrable wall of shadows. Jenna felt tears burning in her eyes. "Keep talking to me, sweetie," she shouted, desperation threading her voice. "I'm coming. I won't leave you." "Mommy, I see them. They're everywhere." "How many, Timmy? Focus on me." "I don't know." So many eyes watching. The room pulsed with darkness, shadows dense and watchful, and in an instant, the other children from the window manifested pale faces with hollow eyes staring blankly, mouths opened wide in silent screams. They filled the space like a suffocating mist, curling toward her like a living tapestry of terror. "No! You won't take my son!" Jenna cried. With a blind surge of instinct, she focused all her fear and love into one cry: "Timmy! Focus on my voice!" Then, darkness thickened as it thrashed violently, bearing down on her, trying to drown her words in silence. The figure's laughter morphed into a cacophony of whispers, blending with the screams of those entrapped, feeding her despair. "You will never escape this nightmare. The price of freedom is too high." Yet Jenna felt a flicker of hope in her heart. Breathing deep, she grasped the fraying strands of her resolve and screamed, "I choose my son!" With those words, the shadows recoiled, their grip loosening just enough. The room trembled, the walls cracked, and just beyond, Timmy's face emerged into view, lit faintly, a beacon of hope amidst the despair. "Mommy!" he shouted again, his little hands reaching out. "Hold on! I'm coming!" She rallied herself, pushing back fiercely against the suffocating grip of fear, forcing her way forward. But then, the world around her turned chaotic. Shadows rippled and stretched, reshaping the ground beneath her feet. With every step, panic surged as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. Would they escape this unfathomable nightmare, or was this merely the beginning of something more dreadful? Just as she reached out, a rift opened beneath her, pulling her back into the swirling maelstrom, and Jenna screamed, a sound swallowed by the abyss as she struggled against fate. What awaited her in the endless depths? Would she find the courage to save Timmy, or become another lost voice in the dark? Jenna gasped, the air hungry and cold clawing at her lungs as the rift engulfed her. Light twisted and bent, illuminating fleeting scenes of torment, a playground where laughter turned to wails, a bedroom where shadows loomed over a slumbering child. She fell through a kaleidoscope of horror, each memory flashing like fragments of a broken mirror, and as she plunged back toward the dark void, terror consumed her. Then, with a jarring thud, she landed heavily on a hard surface. The ground beneath was rough, like rock, chilled and unyielding. She winced, struggling to gather her bearings, blinking against the disorientation that spun around her. The oppressive darkness loomed ahead, but a soft luminescence flickered faintly in the distance. Jenna scrambled to her feet, fear gnawing at her resolve. "Timmy?" she called out tentatively, her voice shaky and raw. All that came back was the echo of her own desperation. Out of nowhere, a low whisper slithered around her, chilling her bones. "Yes, here, but so many others they want him." Too, the shadows shifted ominously, coiling in the corners like restless serpents, but not a single figure emerged. They surrounded her now, a congregation of lost souls hidden just beyond her line of sight. "Stay away from him!" she shouted, the sounds around her distorting grotesquely in response. A chorus of laughter erupted, dark and malevolent, drowning out her own heartbeat. Jenna gritted her teeth. They would not take her son. With resolve, she surged toward the light. Each step felt weighted, as if the shadows below were dragging her back, trying to pull her from her path. Yet hope sparked anew. The light was growing closer, ethereal and warm, calling her. Wrapping her arms around herself for comfort, she pressed on. In that strange illumination, Jenna could make out figures, young and old. Their faces were marred with despair, and their eyes, hollow and pleading, watched her with a depth of pain that twisted her gut. "Help us," one voice cried, scratching her insides raw. "Not now!" she shouted, choking back the flood of emotions threatening to drown her. "I have to save my son!" As she neared the source of the light, reality shifted again, and she stumbled into a vast, empty void suddenly marred by bright flashes, visions of Timmy, of laughter-filled afternoons, of bedtime stories and warm hugs. Every memory swirled like a whirlwind, colliding joy with the fear of loss. His terrified little face took shape, superimposed over the other shadows, and she fought back tears. "Timmy!" she screamed, clawing at the air as though she could rip him from the darkness that loomed. Her voice pierced the silence, risking everything. "I'm here! I'm coming for you!" The shadows recoiled, and the walls of the void around her began to tremble. In the gap between moments, she heard him, a faint sound, like a whisper on the wind. "Mommy, help!" Jenna surged forward, adrenaline spurring her limbs into motion. But the shadows thickened ahead, a wall of sheer blackness blocking her path. She could feel something sliding into her thoughts, a chilling presence trickling in, feeding on her fear. "Leave this place or lose him forever, never!" she cried, as the darkness coiled closer, wrapping around her limbs and whispering insidious truths about failure and sacrifice. "Timmy!" The sound of hope bled through her despair, resonating deep within her core. "Fight! Fight against them!" But the darkness constricted like a vice, squeezing the breath from her chest. With every ounce of strength she could muster, Jenna spun to face the blackness, her heart hammering. "I refuse to let you take him. You will not win!" Suddenly, the shadows receded, yielding under the stubborn light of her determination. The warmth surged forward, breaking the void, illuminating a narrow path towards the fading cry of her son. But as she pressed forward, a chilling realization struck her. What if this wasn't an escape but a trap? What if Timmy was further ensnared in a web of darkness more convoluted than she could ever imagine? A shrill laugh echoed through the hallway of shadows, and as the light flickered again, Jenna hesitated, the weight of her choice crashing down on her. Would she dare step deeper into the unknown to save her son, or would the darkness swallow them both whole? Jenna took a breath, her heart thunderous in her ears. She could not let fear cloud her judgment. "Timmy," she whispered, the name a lifeline in the oppressive dark. With every step, the shadows stirred, as though they were alive, hungry, and moving to reclaim what she was daring to take back. The light pulsed ahead, a beacon flickering with hints of warmth, but the laughter twisted again, curling around her like smoke. "You'll never see him again," they taunted, voices slicing through her resolve like glass. "He is ours, in ways you cannot comprehend." She shoved her anxiety aside, remembering Timmy's sweet laughter, his tiny hands gripping hers as they danced in the living room. "I will do whatever it takes," she vowed, clenching her fists. "You can't have him!" A high-pitched shriek erupted around her, a cacophony of spirits crying out in agony. Their spectral forms blurred against the light, mouths moving but only empty echoes reached her ears. Each sound clawed at Jenna's sanity, testing the limits of her courage. "Mommy!" Timmy's voice was clearer now, laced with urgency. The shadows momentarily fell back, revealing a narrow bridge shimmering with promise. She spotted a small figure beyond the wraiths, a silhouette that tugged at her heart. "Hold on, baby! I'm coming!" Jenna dashed forward, the pulse of fear driving her painfully quick. But the shadows reassembled, thicker now than before, thrumming with dark energy. They pushed against her, their grasp like icy hands trying to suffocate her spirit. "Leave now!" they howled, anger igniting their voices into a violent storm. Jenna stumbled, the force knocking her off balance as she teetered on the precipice between her child and the void. "No!" she screamed, shaking her head in defiance. "I will not abandon him!" She reached deep within herself, every ounce of maternal instinct screaming for her to fight back. Heat surged through her, igniting courage in the face of paralyzing dread. Summoning all her strength, she surged onto the bridge, arms outstretched, a lifeline across the expanse of despair. As she neared, Timmy's figure gained clarity, frantically swatting at the darkness swirling around him. She felt something shift in the air, a mixture of hope and horror, a cracking of the reality they were ensnared in but had lost their grasp on. "Timmy!" The word escaped her throat like a prayer, breaking apart the laughter that loomed and rolled towards her like thunder. The shadows shrieked, a wall of anguish contracting around her, desperate to pull her back. In that moment, Jenna saw his face, tear-streaked and terrified. The anguish mirrored her own. "Mommy! They're taking me!" "No!" Jenna shouted, a primal roar fueled by love and determination. She broke through the remaining shadows, reaching for her son, their fingers almost touching. Just then, the ground beneath the bridge trembled. The light flickered, and a voice, smooth and chilling, echoed through the chaos. "You can save him, but at what cost?" The shadows pressed tighter, whispers louder, their texture changing, merging into a dark mist that swirled threateningly around Jenna, chilling her to the core. The very air felt dense and sticky with malice. "What cost?" she growled, the question tearing free, igniting a flicker of defiance. The shadows laughed a collective, triumphant noise that made her gut twist. The price of one for the many. The moment hung heavy, a dreadful promise woven through the air, and Jenna realized she was faced with a horrific choice. Could she sacrifice herself for Timmy? Or was navigating this abyss a sacrifice all its own? "Timmy!" she breathed, wrestling with the darkness that threatened to engulf her. Then, in the distance, the light began to pulse once more, flickering in an unnatural rhythm. Something about it felt wrong, but it also felt like hope. Bolstered by the need to protect her son, Jenna stepped closer. "Come to me." But as she reached out again, the shadows unleashed a torrent of screams, drawing closer with desperation. Suddenly, the ground quaked violently, and she felt the bridge begin to disintegrate beneath her feet. "Timmy!" And then, everything went dark. Was this the end, or was it just the beginning of something far worse? Jenna gasped, her eyes snapping open to reality. But it wasn't the familiar warmth of sunlight that embraced her, it was the chilling sensation of cold stone beneath her. Panic surged within as she pushed herself up, glancing around in wide-eyed terror. No longer on the bridge, she lay in a damp, deserted chamber, damp stone walls slick with dark moss, a sinister humidity pressing against her skin. "Timmy?" she called, her voice brittle and fractured, echoing into the void. The shadows seemed to hold their breath, the oppressive silence sprawling out like a thick fog. Heart racing, she scrambled to her feet, feeling the uneven ground beneath her shift slightly. The dim light from nowhere illuminated crumbling images on the walls, faces twisted in anguish that seemed to watch her, accusing and sorrowful. "Mommy!" Timmy's cry pierced the stillness like a dagger. His voice was faint but familiar, pulling her like a magnet. Jenna stumbled forward, weaving through the darkness. "I'm coming! Just hold on!" Each step sent a shiver down her spine, the damp odor of decay thickening in the air, suffocating her resolve. Tendrils of shadow lurked in the corners, watching her every move, whispering secrets she couldn't quite grasp, a reminder of the price she had been offered. Shapes flickered in the corners of her vision, fleeting remnants of the tormented souls trapped in this forsaken place. Their eyes empty and haunted met hers briefly, sending a wash of dread coursing through her. They seemed to plead for release, but Jenna shook her head. "I'm not staying, not for you." She pressed on, an iron will driving her toward Timmy's voice, weaving through twisting tunnels that felt alive with malice. The air thickened, weighing on her chest until she had to struggle to breathe. A cold wind howled through the cavern, carrying with it the anguished cries of those who wandered here before her. "Mommy, please!" The plea came again, closer now. Jenna's heart thundered as she quickened her pace, desperation pooling in her stomach. With every turn, the hallways darkened, the atmosphere turning sinister. Layers of fog rolled in, cascading around her, whispering her name like an ancient curse. The laughter returned, echoing off the stone, sharp, mocking. "You think you can save him? You don't know the cost." Her mind raced. What does it take to save him? What price would she have to pay? Sweat beaded at her brow, and she blinked fiercely against the gathering dark, fighting the pull of despair. With newfound determination, she rounded the final bend and stumbled into a grand chamber, the walls towering tall with jagged stone. There, in the center, stood a flickering silhouette Timmy. He was bound to a massive stone altar, surrounded by an ethereal glow that flickered and hummed with dark energy. "Mommy!" His little face was streaked with tears, eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Help me! Hold on, baby!" She rushed toward him, fueled by desperation and love. Yet just as she reached for him, a wall of shadows erupted between them, screeching like banshees. She faltered, the barrier coiling and twisting, a ravenous entity eager to reclaim its prey. "Your son is the key," it hissed, a voice melded from whispers and screams. "But the price is high. One life for another, no." Jenna's voice shattered the air like glass. She could feel the darkness pressing against her, a suffocating wave of malice, whispering endless promises and threats. "I won't lose him." With all she had left, Jenna pushed against the shadows, thrusting her hands forward. Light burst from her palms as emotions flowed through her, a blinding brilliance that clashed with the darkness. The wraiths writhed, shrieking in pain, yet the shadows swirled tighter, choking the light. "Choose!" The chilling voice echoed around her, drowning out Timmy's pleas. Jenna's heart raced, pounding against the confines of her chest. She had to make a choice, but what would that cost? In that moment of agony, everything hung in the balance: love, sacrifice, and the horrifying line between salvation and doom. "Timmy!" she screamed, desperation clawing at her throat as the shadows threatened to collapse in on her. "Hold on!" And then, before she could think, the ground beneath her feet trembled violently once more. A cacophony of wails erupted from the shadows, and Jenna felt the world begin to shatter around her. Would she find the strength to save her son, or were they both lost to the darkness forever? As the echoes of despair spiraled around her, the next moment seemed to freeze. A choice lay ahead, shrouded in shadows and stitched in fear. The shadows thrashed around Jenna like wild serpents, pulling her deeper into their chilling embrace. The ground shook violently, and echoing screams wrestled with the thick energy in the air. "Timmy!" she cried, a raw desperation ripping at her throat. The flickering light from her hands sparked a brief illusion of hope, illuminating twisted faces of the damned that swirled within the darkness. "Make your choice!" The voice boomed, thrumming through her bones. It was a cacophony of identities, each whisper layered upon the other, a dissonant symphony of sorrow demanding her attention. Jenna squeezed her eyes shut, feeling heat build around her fists. The urgency clawed at her insides, twisting her stomach in knots. What if I sacrifice myself? Could that free him? The thought was intoxicating, hopeful yet terrifying. Shadows danced around her, sensing her hesitation, tasting her fear. "One life for another, what will you give?" The voices taunted, they laughed, past the veil of shadows that separated her from Timmy. With renewed clarity, Jenna opened her eyes, feeling heat intensify within her. Electricity thrummed in her veins, igniting a fierce determination. If it meant saving Timmy, she'd do anything. But would anything be enough? "Your son holds the key to freedom," gurgled the shadows, and in that moment, Jenna understood. She looked toward the stone altar where Timmy trembled, eyes wide, pleading. The choice was agonizing, more painful than any wound. He was so close, yet the dark forces between them stretched like dismal infinity. "Don't be afraid, baby," she yelled, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her heart ached with every syllable. She might have to sacrifice herself, but he would be safe. That was worth everything. As if sensing her resolve, the shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned. "You would sacrifice yourself? But what you don't understand, dear lady," a shriek of laughter erupted from every direction, heartless and chilling. Others had tried and failed before her. "Your love can't protect him, only despair will reign." Jenna couldn't allow themselves to believe that. "Timmy!" she screamed, the name twisting around her lips. The air thickened, becoming almost viscous, suffocating. The altar glowed brighter as she clutched her own heart, feeling it pulse in harmony with the staccato of her breaths. "I would trade my soul for his freedom." she shouted into the void. The echoes rang back, but this time they carried a weight of certainty. The anguished faces seemed to fade, their whispers quieting, suspended between disbelief and intrigue. Timmy stood still on the altar, eyes wide. "Mommy!" The shadows surged forward like a hungry tide, angry and thrashing, but Jenna stood unyielding. "Let him go! Take me instead!" she cried, her voice resonating in the chamber that felt alive, responding to her sacrifice. A piercing howl erupted, shaking the foundations of darkness. The shadows swallowed her words, tangling them with terror. Then, silence like an omen. Jenna's bravery cast a beacon of light, cutting through the suffocating despair. "Very well," the voice echoed from the abyss, each word soaked in sweetness and malice. "One life for another." Jenna's heart thundered. She felt the looming shadows wrap around her like serpents, pulling her closer to the brink. "Timmy! I love you!" she yelled right before everything exploded in a blinding flash. And then nothing. Jenna opened her eyes to a swirling void, vast and cold. The weight of her body felt different, unbearably heavy within the inky blackness. Did it work? Was she free? But all around her was despair, lifeless and echoing. In the distance, she could just make out the whimpering cries. Tiny hands reached out in the void. "Timmy?" The sound of his sobs sliced into the silence, sending arrows of ice through her core. "Timmy! I'm here!" Jenna shouted, struggling against the weight of doom trying to swallow her whole. But what lay ahead? Would she truly save him? Or had the dark made a different bargain? As shadows crept around her, closing in, a new fear gripped her heart. What if saving Timmy came at a price far worse than death? She squinted into the deep void, searching for any sign of him. And there it was, a flicker of light, dancing just beyond reach. What would it cost to grab it? Would it bring them together or tear them apart forever? Jenna concentrated, her heart hammering as she followed the flicker of light. Shadows writhed around her, angry whispers rising in volume, a cacophony of threats that sought to pull her back into their bleak embrace. She pushed against the weight, every ounce of love surging within her. "I will not let you take him!" she screamed, the words ripping from her throat with fierce urgency. The darkness snarled in response, its grasp tightening, but the light flickered brighter, calling her forward. "Timmy! I'm coming!" Desperation fueled her movements, and she lunged toward the fading glow, the sound of her son's cries echoing in her heart. "There's still time. Come to me!" The light pulsed again, revealing a path through the heavy shadows that tried to wall her off. Each step felt monumental, shifting her dependence on fear into a burning resolve. The faces of lost children filled her mind, their mute screams amplifying her anger, propelling her forward with reckless force. Jenna burst through barriers of shadow and despair, and there he was, Timmy, bound to the altar, just as she'd seen before. His small body trembled, eyes wide with bewilderment and sorrow. "Mommy!" The joy in his voice sent jolts of energy through her veins. "Timmy!" She sprinted forward, and as if responding to her eagerness, the shadows thrashed wildly. But Jenna was ready. The moment she reached the altar, she pressed her palm against its cold surface, feeding her love into it like a lifeline amid the chaos. "I will do anything for you," she shouted, her voice breaking through hushed whispers. "Trust me." An electric tingle ran through her, connecting them in an invisible thread, and suddenly the shadows recoiled. They shrieked, a chorus of agony filled the air, thrumming against her senses, but Jenna fought through the tumult, her love paling the darkness. "Let him go!" she demanded, her voice stronger, piercing the haze like sunlight. A chilling laughter erupted, warped and malevolent. Love cannot break the bounds of darkness. But Jenna held tight to her belief, her very essence pulsing with the power of her promise. "Love is everything!" she shouted defiantly. "And I choose it over fear." The shadows wailed, a chorus of tortured souls swirling together, forming a tempest of rage. "Foolish woman! You think love can overcome despair? I don't think it simply does." Jenna pushed harder, hands glowing with an intensity that ignited the air around her. Suddenly, a brilliant flash erupted, illuminating the chamber with blinding light, fracturing the shadows and illuminating the faces of lost children around her. Each moment felt like a gift, a glimpse of hope, of joy, of everything Timmy could be. "Mommy!" Timmy reached for her, and in that heartbeat, she felt something shift. The shadows faltered, losing their grip as light surged toward Timmy, wrapping him in a tender embrace. The very essence of their love disintegrated the chains that bound him. "No!" the voice from the void shrieked, ricocheting through the air with visceral fury. Jenna summoned all she had left. "You will not take him!" The energy around her swirled, intertwining their breaths until she shattered the darkness. With a final surge, light exploded forth, washing away the shadows in a brilliant cascade of warmth and love. The altar crumbled beneath the power of their bond, releasing Timmy from its grasp. "Mommy!" Timmy flew into her arms, a small weight of warmth and life as they collapsed to the floor amidst waves of light. They embraced, laughter bubbling up through shared relief, brightening the dullness surrounding them. "Let us get out of here!" Jenna cried, watching the last vestiges of darkness melt away, unable to withstand the glow of their unwavering love. They surged forward, racing through the tunnel, until they reached the blinding light at the chamber's end. Bursting through, they emerged into the early morning sun, warmth flooding over them. Timmy stood wide-eyed beside her, safely nestled in the real world. "What just happened?" he whispered, blinking against the sunlight. Jenna knelt, brushing her fingers through his hair, breathing in the scent of freedom. "It doesn't matter now. You're safe." But beneath her heart lingered the echoes of those lost souls, the sacrifice they had endured. They had been yearning for a voice, a way to break free. Jenna turned, glancing back toward the dark realm they had escaped. She understood now that a piece of her would forever remain tethered to the shadows, the consequence of love that she had borne. "Promise me we'll never forget," she said softly to Timmy, the weight of their experiences forming a bond that love could light the darkest paths, guiding them home. They walked hand in hand, facing a fresh dawn, letting the warmth envelop them, understanding the true weight of their journey and the resilience in their hearts. In the distance, the sun rose, swallowing the last whispers of midnight, and beyond them, the world awaited, full of possibilities and new beginnings. And from that day forth, Jenna vowed to honor both her love for her son and the lives they had touched, reminding them, and herself, that even in shadows, one's light could shine. Now they were free at last. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that dive deep into the unknown. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help uncover the secrets hidden in every tale. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what came next for Jenna and Timmy. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.